This is Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.
Welcome back to another edition of Inside the News. Glad to have you with us. My name is Guy Wehman. I'm in your top right of your screen, and we've got Frank Vernuccio on the top right, and we have Ben Brunson on the bottom middle. How you doing today, Ben Brunson?
I am doing just fine. I'm enjoying your vehicle assembly building background there.
Yeah, and we're trying something new here, so I got to be careful. Otherwise, I lose an arm. How you doing, Frank?
Doing well. Looking forward to our discussion.
All right, and we'll be talking about NASA in our fourth segment. That'll be segment D on down the line. But the pandemic, Frank, versus the natural disasters, dust bowls, hurricanes, and this pandemic could be actually worse than the AIDS virus. What do you think about that, Frank?
Well, certainly in terms of it being contagious, AIDS, you had to engage in a certain affirmative act to actually catch it. This you can get just by being in a room with someone who has it and happens to cough or sneeze. What it's going to do, though, it's changing the nature of the way people look at the environment they live in. New York City, where I live, of course, is the epicenter of the world, frankly, at this point for the contagion. And New York City, of course, relies on its subway system where people are tightly packed together. People are also tightly packed together in elevators. Something's going to have to change. We're going to have to find ways of making those environments a lot more secure, a lot more safe. But that's going to take quite a bit of investment to do.
You know something, Ben, and that is true. And we talked about this on earlier programs about the subway that, and Frank even mentioned it. One person up in New York City gets it with that subway system. It was going to spread. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, Ben.
Well, that certainly seems to be the case, that the subway was the main vector for spread of the disease, made the R0 extremely high in New York City. And the reason why New York was so heavily hit, while states like California, Washington, and Florida, which looked like they were going to be hit as hard, if not harder, turned out to run its course pretty well in those states in terms of not spreading quite as far. So you have to say that the difference between the experience in different states really comes down to the mass transit system in New York, which is widely used and full all the time, and that was a dangerous prescription for the drug. And versus California, Florida, which are still automobile-based transportation systems for the most part, which obviously makes it a lot tougher for the virus to spread. So there's a lot to be learned from watching what happened in these different states, and it allows us, I think, to more quickly open up and get back to business as usual. Being smart in terms of social distancing, wearing masks, and cleaning. So we're doing it in a smart way, but we know how to do it. We know what to do, and we just need to let businesses figure it out and implement the right things at this point.
Absolutely. You know something, Frank, we're pushing 100,000 deaths in this country, and this country is struggling whether to open or not open. And it seems like certain states are more open than others, and it's not the fault. Well, maybe it is the fault of some of these governors like New York that maybe they didn't close down. What's the feeling up there or the sentiment up there in New York, Frank?
Well, of course, there's a lot of liability, legal, I think, and emotional, in terms of malfeasance or misfeasance by our elected representatives. Both the mayor of the city of New York and his health commissioner told people, even as the rest of the world was beginning to realize how desperate a situation this was, to ignore it. They said, go out, live your normal life, take the subway, go to these mass events, at the same time that everyone else was realizing how serious this was. President Trump was called a racist and a xenophobe for trying to stop travel from China. Incidentally, isn't it fascinating how the media, for the most part, is pretending it never used those terms, racist and xenophobic, when describing President Trump's initial reaction to this contagion? They haven't apologized yet. They still haven't. Neither the mayor of the city of New York nor its health commissioner have revealed or have come clean and said, look, we made a mistake. We're sorry about this. Lesson learned. The governor of the state of New York has a particular culpability. He decided that he was going to put recovering COVID patients in nursing homes. More than half of the deaths, of the most recent deaths, have come from nursing homes because of the governor's mistake. He too has failed to really express his sorrow or the fact that he made a terrible blunder. And I think that's a major problem going forward.
You know something, Frank, you're absolutely correct in that. And what is interesting, Ben, is that the internet lives for Cuomo. They tried to delete the tweet that actually had his executive order in it about the nursing homes. And yet, with the internet that lives forever, they were able to find that exact document where he said, you know, put them back in those nursing homes. And that is a tremendous blunder on his part, Ben.
Well, this is a bit of history that's not going to be able to be whitewashed by the government, the governor and his allies in New York. It is the one scandal that is going to have legs coming out of this entire COVID-19 mess in this country. The fact that the governor of New York ordered the repatriation of patients who were suffering, who were infected with COVID-19 back into nursing homes where it spread. And the numbers don't lie. The numbers are overwhelming. It was the opposite path as that taken in most of the rest of the country, particularly in Florida, where Governor DeSantis made the exact opposite took the opposite type of approach. Once anyone was diagnosed with COVID-19, his approach was to remove them from the risky settings, from being inside a nursing home, and put them into a hospital facility or some other facility where they could be segregated from other vulnerable people. Obviously, that is the logical way to go. It worked. The numbers show it. It worked overwhelmingly in Florida, and it failed miserably in New York. And you can't help but look at the numbers and wonder how different we would be. We might have as few as half the actual death toll of this from this virus had New York taken a different path. So this is something that is on Governor Cuomo, and there's no way to undo it at this point except to hopefully do it correctly going forward.
Frank, we're going to get Ben in on this next one because he's our economic guy here, but I want you to kick us off here. Our jobless claims are near the 40 million mark. That is absolutely unbelievable. Talk about the Great Depression back in the 30s. This, I think, even eclipses that. This is going to be major. And then within the last week, President Trump said that if there was a second wave, he's not shutting down the country. He actually ordered churches to be open as essential, and many applaud him on that decision. I am for one. And he's actually making some firm stands on this, Frank.
He is, and that contrasts sharply with what the Democrats are doing. Frankly, if we are going to get the country back on its economic feet, we have got to gear any kind of assistance towards businesses so they can recover and they can start hiring people once again. There is an illusion on the part of the Democratic Party, Nancy Pelosi in particular, that somehow by giving relief checks to individuals, this will spark the economy. It will not. The country cannot simply afford to send out $1,000 or $1,200 checks to everyone who's unemployed or everyone in the country and expect that to provide an economic recovery. We need to get business open and operating. But if you look at the mindset of the Democrats, who have been pushing a socialist concept for a long time now, this is great for them. This is like, being in Disneyland. It's wonderful. This is a chance to push socialist economics that they have not been able to ram down the throats of the American people for a decade or more. So they don't really see this as being a crisis in their heart of hearts. That's perhaps why Nancy Pelosi stays ensconced in California next to a refrigerator full of ice cream, rather than doing the right thing and coming back to Washington and coming to work. And by the way, we just celebrated Memorial Day, and men and women in the service of this country put themselves at risk, in many cases gave their lives for the defense of our country. Nancy Pelosi can't even get on her private airplane, come to Washington, and do her job. What a disgrace.
All right. We're going to take a break here in just a little bit because my screen is gone here. But Ben, I want to bring you in on this. Go.
Look, this has been the sharpest downturn in the history of this country. There was a downturn that took 3 years following the crash of 1929, October 1929. That crash led to a response from the Federal Reserve, which was completely wrong. They pulled liquidity out of the marketplaces. They caused roughly a third of the banks in this country to fail as a result. And we entered the Great Depression. We have a Fed that is reacting in the opposite way now, just as it reacted in the opposite way in the equally large crash of 1987. In fact, a larger crash. I was working in New York on Wall Street at the time, painful to go through. But the good news is, and the market is showing this, the market is performing quite well, and it is anticipating that we will react and come out of this much faster than some of the most pessimistic scenarios have shown. I don't think we're going to take years to come out of this. I think we can emerge from this and get back on track close to where we were before this year's out. And I think 2021 can be a very strong economic growth year because of the actions taken by the Fed to ensure liquidity and to in some of the programs. I disagree a little bit with Frank in that some of the programs that went out to individuals, payments to individuals, have helped people weather this downturn. And the key, of course, now is to get people employed once again and to have a fully open economy so that the employment can come back. And I hope we're going to get there very fast.
Hey, Ben, do you think that $1,200 helped? I do. I hear a lot of people, they say that really helped them a lot.
It helped for the market that was being targeted. And so they did a pretty good job of saying, all right, if your income is under a certain level, you need a direct stimulus. We'll send it right to your bank account. For people like me who've been a little bit more fortunate in life, I did not get a direct stimulus like that, and I didn't need it. I have the savings to survive and weather the storm. So it worked out pretty well. And nothing is perfect. The PPP loans weren't perfect, but they did the job. A lot of these programs, by and large, effectively gave money to those who needed it to help keep small business payrolls alive, to help individuals get through this. And if we can reopen the economy, now if we continue to have the economy shut down for 6 months, no program can overcome that. And we've talked about it on the show. That is disaster. We will enter a long-term Great Depression if we do that. If we continue to reopen the economy aggressively at this point, and hopefully more aggressively as we go through the summer, I think we can come out of this and do just fine in the end.
Hey, Frank, schools are going to be an integral part of what's going to be happening here moving forward. And with the schools is going to be coming school sports, whether it's high school or if it's collegiate, prep versus collegiate. And then we got the NFL and the big boys. But the people need something like that. Millions of people watch this Tom Brady, the match with Mickelson and Tiger Woods on Sunday. They're watching NASCAR. They are so eager for live sports, Frank.
Well, they certainly are. And of course, a lot of people like myself are having baseball withdrawal. This is the time of year when baseball is fresh and new and exciting, and not having it is absolutely a disaster, I think. It's a symbol of normalcy to have professional sports, but we have to readjust. I think our whole way of thinking, we have to readjust how we're going to do some of these things. Right now, crowding 60,000 people into football or baseball stadiums would not be the wisest move. Major League Baseball is talking about a variety of scenarios to get it going. Hopefully, the players and the Major League Baseball can come to an agreement so that by July 1st, at the latest, the season can get started. And that'll be, I think, to a lot of people, the first sign of real normalcy after this horrible episode we've had.
Okay, Ben, 60 seconds on the same subject.
Well, sports are an indication of normalcy, and getting sports open again is a good thing. We have the Bundesliga playing in Germany. The Premier League in soccer is going to reopen, I believe, early June. Just as Frank said, the sporting event with Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning against Mickelson and Tom Brady had 6 million viewers, which is a great sign. It shows how eager people are. And for me, Memorial Day weekend usually means college lacrosse. And unfortunately this year I did not get my live college lacrosse fix, but I'm grateful to ESPNU, which showed a lot of the historical national championship games over the last few years all day yesterday. So that's how I got my fix.
All right. And Ben always picks the most popular. We're talking lacrosse. Oh, my goodness. Well, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back. We're going to be talking about the growing cyber war with China. And is there maybe a Cold War on the process, on the cusp here, or are we actually going to enter into a war? This is Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio. We're going to take a break. We'll be back.
You're listening to Wehman, Brunson, and Vernuccio, Inside the News.